Welcome to Headline to Heartline. At a palace door, titles may open the way, but footsteps reveal who truly crossed the threshold. Did Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie visit Jeffrey Epstein when they were already adults? The answer is yes. Reporting from several major outlets indicates that in July 2009, the sisters, then about 19 and 20, were taken to see Epstein in the United States by their mother, Sarah Ferguson. That timing alone has drawn intense scrutiny because Epstein had just been released from jail after serving time for sex crimes involving minors. In other words, the world already knew exactly who he was. But there is another part of this story that often gets blurred in public conversations. While credible reporting indicates the sisters were present on that visit, there is still no strong public evidence showing that Beatrice or Eugenie have their own independent relationship with Epstein. The available reporting places them there as part of a trip arranged through their mother's connection to him, not as individuals maintaining their own separate friendship. One of the most striking details involves the cost of the flights connected to that trip. Several outlets reviewing released documents and emails have pointed to a figure of about $14,000 for the travel linked to Sarah Ferguson and her daughters. That amount would roughly align with multiple transatlantic first-class tickets between London and the United States at the time, which typically ranged between $4,000 and $7,000 per seat, depending on airline and availability. In other words, the number itself is not random. It fits the typical price bracket for premium long-haul travel. According to reporting highlighted by outlets including Reuters, The Guardian, and Sky News, the email suggests Epstein's staff were involved in arranging those flights and seeking approval for the purchase. Some coverage even noted messages discussing travel for the Duchess and the girls, indicating the arrangements were not casual. They were organized, documented, and apparently paid for by Epstein. This is why the flight detail keeps appearing in headlines. When a wealthy man pays for international travel for a royal family member and her daughters, that fact alone raises obvious questions about the closeness of the relationship and the judgment behind it. And that is where public criticism has focused most sharply on Sarah Ferguson. By 2009, Epstein was not a mysterious financier surrounded by rumors. He was a convicted offender whose crimes had already been widely reported. So the central question many observers ask is not whether the daughters were legally adults. It is why their mother would bring them anywhere near him in the first place, especially while accepting travel paid for by him. If you are finding this breakdown useful, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and let's continue. For the daughters themselves, the record that has emerged is much thinner. The reporting places them on that visit, but it does not establish a pattern of personal meetings, private correspondence, or a sustained independent relationship between either Princess and Epstein. In other words, their presence appears to have come through family proximity rather than their own personal connection. That distinction matters. In scandals like this, it is easy for the public to collapse every person in the same orbit into the same level of responsibility. But careful reporting tries to separate proximity from participation. Based on the credible sources available so far, Beatrice and Eugenie appear in this story as daughters who were brought along by a parent who maintained contact with Epstein long after his conviction had made that association deeply troubling. And that brings the focus back to the adult who arranged the encounter. The emails about flights, the payment details, and the timing of the visit all point toward the same uncomfortable conclusion. Sarah Ferguson remained socially and financially connected to Epstein at a moment when many people would have expected the opposite. In the end, the confirmed pieces of this story are powerful enough on their own. Yes, the princesses visited Epstein as adults. Yes, the trip appears to have involved flights costing around $14,000 that were arranged and paid for through his side. But no, the credible public record still does not show that either Beatrice or Eugenie had a separate personal relationship with him outside the connection created by their mother. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If you enjoyed this analysis, please subscribe to the channel and like the video before you go. And remember, behind every palace door, the truth is usually revealed by the footsteps that crossed it.